In this segment, we're going to learn how to manage navigation. Navigation on your site can be found in a lot of different locations. Now in this example, we have navigation set up as the top kind of horizontal navigation. And you'll notice that as I hover over certain navigation items, you will see children, and some of these children also have children. So this is an n-tiered navigation that allows for a structured, tiered family of pages on your site. Now a navigation record can be a lot of different things. It could be just an ordinary web page. It could be a link to a live form of some type. We might have a link to a form. We might have a navigation item that links us to a collection of records, what we refer to as a module. Now here we see a link to the module known as articles. So navigation is probably the most important thing on your website. The reason being is that we need to maintain an organization of all of these pages as you create them over time, so that the search portals can find them, so that you can find them, so that there's order to all of this content. So oftentimes on your site we'll set up a site map which shows basically from the home page, which is the starting point of your site, to all of the children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren pages underneath. And navigation also has of course, the notion of order. This navigation shows up first, this one second, this one third. Even within the family of those children, we might have this one showing up above this one. So you have to be conscious of how you're tagging these records in terms of which order do they appear in, and on which site do they appear. And the reason I mention that is that sometimes we have sites that are comprised of many different microsites. So we might have a navigation item which shows up not only on your main website, but also on other sites underneath. Or we may have a navigation item which shows up only on one of these sites. So navigation is very important, and it's something you want to understand very well so that we can manage navigation pages on the site. So let's first start off by logging into the client console. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the console, it will be the address of either the development site we're working on or your live site, and we're going to go to /console. Here you'll log in using the username and credentials that you have to access the Centralpoint technology, and when you log in you'll see all of our tools here on the left. Now don't be alarmed. Navigation is found under Site Architecture. You might want to write that down. That's important in the future. Site architecture governs a lot of different things, the microsites, the navigational structure. And under site architecture, we're going to click on navigation. So here we see the navigation for this site. And you'll also see that under each navigation item, we might have children. So very much like we saw just a moment ago, and I'll kind of toggle back there so you can see it. Under this navigation item multimedia, we have a number of children. Some of those children have children. So multimedia has documents. Under documents is Tyler's form, for an example. So if we go into the module, up here in the corner you'll notice we're paginating from the first page of results to the second page of results, just to show you how, if you happen to have a lot of records, you'll need to know that. So pagination is found in the upper right hand side. So let's look at that multimedia. Multimedia has 22 children. Under those 22 children we saw documents, and documents had a child known as Tyler's form results. So that's kind of just to help demystify how that works. That is exactly how the structure works. So let's just start from the top here. So we have some navigation that's predefined for this site. We're going to add a new navigation record, and I'm going to call this record About Us. Now you'll see that you have other options here called system name, browser title, navigation display. These are important because when I click on this page, I might want to have something else appear in the title of the internet browser, within Google Chrome or Internet Explorer. So I might want to say my new page talks about our company. So this is just so you can see that you can have a different title in the browser window than you can the actual web page. We can also have the navigation display differently. So for example, you might want to call this, the original About Us page from last year, but it's going to appear on the site as About Us ABC, just so you can see what these things do later. Now, when you go to create your new record, you will have a start date and an end date that's already predefined. So we're making an assumption, just to save you some time, that your record starts at the moment you've clicked New, which is today, and won't expire for a very long time. Now, if you wanted to say, look, I don't want this page to go live until the 18th of September or the 25th of September, you could do this. And you also might want to say, look, at a certain point in time, I want that page to go away. So normally you don't mess with these too often, but if you do need to control the release of this record or when it disappears from the site, that's how you would do that. Finally, you'll see, does this site have a parent? As we saw earlier in that example, under multimedia, we had various children. So right now, we're going to create a parent navigation. So the answer is no. Right now, we don't need to select a parent, meaning this is not a child of another record. It's just a record unto itself. And then we can say, okay, what do we want in the body copy of this record? So I might just put here sample body copy for navigation item. Now, if we had content that we're copying and pasting from another location, I'm going to just paste some in right here. Well, it doesn't look like I have any in my clipboard, so we'll just work with this content that we have. So this content, I might want to format that. I might want to make it a different color. I might want to make it italic. I might want to change the font size. So here we see all of these RTF editor icons that allow us to do the things we need to within our web page. For example, I might want to bring in an image, or I might want to bring in a video, or some type of rich media. So each of these icons have their own purpose. Here I'm bringing in a happy face, and I'm going to put that in our site. Now, if I wanted to upload a new image, you noticed I selected something that was already there. I could upload a new image, and it will then go in the library, and I can select from that. The reason we do that is because you don't want to be re-uploading the same images over and over and over. We might want to have one reference to your logo or to the picture of your building. So this makes it very convenient for you to reuse those items. So here we have just a very simple thing, sample body copy for our About Us navigation. I'm just going to highlight this right here, so you can see it stands out. And now it's quite simple. It's where do I want this to appear? Okay. Do I want it in all of my websites, or maybe only some of my websites? For example, I might want it only on my main website. I might want it on my main website and a child website underneath called Regional Hospital. So for right now, just to keep it simple, I'm going to say, look, put this page on all of my websites, have it show up in that top horizontal area that we had predefined for you, and I want this page to be available for everyone. We'll get back to this later. So I'm going to submit this new page. Page is submitted. Okay, so we now have this new page called About Us. I think another important feature is the order of this page. It's ordered as number 1. If I wanted to control that order, I could change that and say I want this to show up as number 7 in the order of the navigation. And now we're going to take a look at our site. Let's refresh it. And we now have a new page here called About Us ABC. Now you'll notice the navigation, even though the record was called About Us, here it's called About Us ABC. Here is the sample copy that we have done, and here's our little smiley face. If we wanted to search for any of this content, it's now searchable. It's now included in the search. And the layout of all of your navigation pages, which can be changed, this is just an example, may have features like printer-friendly format, so that that page you've just created can render a printer-friendly output. Or maybe someone wants to email that page to a friend. So all of these items can be taken off. They don't have to be in the layout of all of your navigation pages. So let us go in and just build out on that a little bit. So number 1, let's rename our About Us page. So it doesn't say About Us ABC. It says About Us 1, 2, 3. And we're just going to submit that. And here we're going to refresh the page just to show you that these changes take effect immediately. About Us 1, 2, 3. There it is. And let's go back into our page, and we're just going to call this About Us. Okay, so we've created a simple web page. That's all there is to it, okay, called About Us. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a page under that page. So we're going to start building out this kind of tree structure, and I'm going to say our history. Now, for our history, and by the way, browser title is not required, so you don't have to fill that out at all. Our history is going to live under the parent known as About Us. That's the record we had just created. And here we might put in a little bit about our history. A little about our history. Okay. So, and I'll make this large just so it stands out for the demo. Okay, a little about our history, which lives under About Us. It lives as position number 1 under About Us. Again, it lives under the top horizontal nav, and it's available for everyone. So we're now going to submit our record. Now we see that About Us has one child. The child is our history. And if we look at the new the website, let's refresh it. We now have under, I'll just go to the home page here as if we're looking at the site the very first time. We now have About Us, and underneath we have our history. So if I click on our history, we'll see a little bit about our history. So what we're doing is we're building on a tree. As we build this navigation, the sitemap is also building. So if we take a look at the entire site's sitemap, and we look under the home page, we will see that one of our items here is About Us, and one of them is called Our History. If I click on that, it'll take me right to that page. So this makes it nice for Google to find this page. Very, very important. But there's more you might need to know about navigation. So let's continue to build out this tree structure. So I'm going to say, you know, from 1900 to 1950. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that range in history. So this will live under About Us. It will be under our history. And I'll say, those were the old days. For example, forgive me. Just to show you that we're building a parental tree structure. It lives in the top, under our history, under About Us. Very simple. Just took a second to do. Very easy. And now we're going to go back and take a look at our structure here. And we now have About Us, our history, and here we have the years 1900 and 1950, which tell me about that range in history. So we're building out that tree structure. And again, we see in the sitemap About Us, our history, 1900 to 1950. Okay, so what we've done so far is we've just created some very basic web pages. Now, what I'd like to do is get a little bit more advanced. What I'm going to say is I'm going to create link to our staff directory. Now, because we're you know, or I'll just call it staff directory, okay, which might be more appropriate. Okay, so this isn't a web page. This is a hyperlink to the link that contains all the staff members, which is one of our modules in Centralpoint. So in this case, I'm going to say, look, this takes me to one of the Centralpoint modules, and it's going to take me specifically to the employee directory within the site. And again, I want that to live in the top navigation, and I want it to live under the parent item of About Us. All right. So it's not a web page, it's a pointer or a guide which takes us to the collection of records that we manage for employees. You know, and of course in our system we have all these modules that manage events and employees and products and articles. So you know, we need to get the person to that place where they can search an employee. So the navigation type was not an HTML web page. It was in fact a pointer to one of those modules. So now when we look under About Us, we have our history and we have our sales directory. When I click on sales directory, that will bring me to the searchable module known as, you know, employee directory or whatever it might be, where I can search the person I'm looking for and find them. We might do a lot of other things. It might not be a link to a module, it might be a link to another web page altogether. For example, we might say we have a new page called link to Google. So we want to provide a link to Google. We want that to live under About Us. We don't need to put anything in this box here because we're going to say, look, when someone clicks that link, the page type will be a URL. And the URL will be Google. Now, it'll ask us, do we want to keep them in the website? Like, do we want to replace their view of your website with Google and just refresh the whole browser? Or would we like Google to open up in a new or blank window. So blank would mean that you're clicking on a link that opens up in another pop-up window. Self means that it's going to go to that link and replace the site that you were on. Again, I want it to be in the top navigation, and now I'm going to submit this. Okay, so going back to our site, we now have in our organizational structure About Us, Link to Google, Our History, and Sales Directory. So this navigation is starting to build out. If I were to click Link to Google, that will bring up a new window that takes me to Google. So you saw what just happened there. That hyperlink basically redirected me to the Google site. But it did so in a new window. So my window's still open. It just opened up in a brand new window. Okay. Other things that this might be. Let's log into the back end. And let's say, okay, what else could this be? This might be an iframe, or it might be a sub-navigation. A lot of different types of things that this navigation could be, but I think that kind of gives you the gist on how these things are built out. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is this. What if we have a page that no one can see unless they log in? All right, so let's do that. I'm going to say log in, folks only see this. Now, I'm going to make that a child of About Us. I'm going to say this is only for logged in members. I am then going to say I do want it in the top navigation, and I want it to be in any one of my sites, but I only want it to be for someone who logs in, which is private. So this is not a page for everyone. This is not a page for the public. This is a page only for private members. Now, it could have been only a page for the CEO or the sales rep, or however we've set your roles up. But I'm just going to say if someone has private privileges, they can see it. If they do not have private privileges, they will not see it. So when we go to the site, we take a look at it. Here we are, main. And let's just refresh the site. We should not see this page. So under About Us, we see Link to Google, Our History, Sales Directory, nothing for logged in members. Now notice if I log in, and I'm returned to, in this case, some private area, where I then click on About Us. In this section only, we have an area here for login folks who only see this. And here's that page that is destined only for those users. So very important point here. Roles. As you tag these pages, you might post a page and say, I don't see it on my website. What's happened? I've posted a navigation item. I don't see it anywhere. What's the problem? Likely, you have not made the proper selections down here. You have not selected that you wanted it present in the top navigation. You likely have not selected that it has been assigned to the right audience, for example, the main site. Had I tagged this record to this site here, well, if I were on the main site, I wouldn't see it at all. It's only going to show up on that site. So you want to pay careful attention to how are you tagging these records to make sure that the right groups get them, and not only the right websites, but the right types of people get them. Everyone will ensure that everyone see it, and of course you can select only for the specific types of people you need to see it. Okay, so I think that helped illustrate private from public content all being managed from the same central point. All right, another thing we want to talk about here is what about these records that you're working on and you don't want anyone to see? This is a work in progress, it's not ready for prime time, that sort of thing. Fine. So this page right here, About Us, let's assume that we're not ready to release it just yet, but I want to work on it. So I might say to myself that this record is on hold. You'll notice this field down here is called Display Status. It's on hold. So if I put this record on hold and I go back to the site, so it's still here in navigation right there at the top, but if I go back to my main site, you no longer see it in the navigation. If I release it from hold, it then will be available in navigation. So again, another key point to realize. Now when you go to create a new record, this display status will automatically be set to release because we assume that most pages you're adding, you're ready to just release them. But if you wanted to hold back on that and embargo that for a later release date, display status is what you'd want to use for that. Another way to do that is to just postpone the start date, but I prefer to use the display status to control when it shows up. This is an interesting one. You'll see that there's an option here called visible. Is it visible or is it not? Well, kind of like display status. Display status will take it off from view. Well, we might want it, released to the site, but it's really not something that you would find in the core navigation. We might want to use this as some reference point web page that we link to another. So again, this will be by default selected to yes, and that's all there is to it. Okay, one other feature for navigation. I want to make sure we have released this so that it's back on the site. Okay, navigation can even do more than just act as a pointer to Google or a pointer to a module or be a web page. Everything in our system is an object-oriented reference. So for example, let's say we had a contact form or some type of form that we wanted people to fill out, like this one here, which is a form that's been set up in advance, where someone could upload information or maybe sign up as a member. So I won't get into all this right now on how to set up a form, but everything we create becomes an object. So for example, this form right here, we might want this form to be available in our site, in our navigation, and what I've done there is I've copied the object that I needed to create a new form that we're going to call this our Contact Us form. It's just an ordinary web page. We want it to live under About Us, but they're not going to get a regular web page. They're going to get the form that you just saw. So there's that object I just copied from the form that I want people to sign up with, and I'm going to release it to the site and release it. So there we go. So now when we go back to the main site, let's just refresh our page. We have quite a few things going on. We have an About Us navigation item. We have a Contact Us form, link to Google, our history with a child, staff directory. So we're going to click on the Contact Us form. So you can see that this becomes a living, breathing form that someone can fill out. When it's filled out, it might get routed to the right person. We need to collect everyone who filled it out. But basically, navigation is a way for us to organize everything that we're doing. And here we see our About Us, our Contact Us form, link to Google, our history and child. And as over time this starts to build, starts to grow. The nice thing is if you happen to group these things incorrectly as you begin, not a problem. You can very easily re-relate these things. Let me show you an example of that. Let's say I didn't want About Us to be this parent child relationship. I wanted About Us to be maybe deeper into another area. So I'm going to go back to my About Us parent, that parent navigation. And I'm going to say, let's put this record under health information, specifically under the Adam Encyclopedia, for an example. Okay. So what I'm showing is that this is flexible. You can't hurt yourself. If you set up a bunch of nav items and you want to rearrange them later, that's fine. Here, let me just refresh the window here. And you'll see that the About Us section now lives as a child under this encyclopedia section under health information. It is no longer a parent type. We no longer see it in the parent navigation. Yet all of these links, About Us, our contact form, link to Google, everything's still fine. We haven't ruined anything. So the good news is go ahead and create your navigation and organize it the best way you possibly can. We can always move all of that information around later. So that's about it. We do have some features in navigation for our advanced clients who might need to do a little bit more, and that's fine. We encourage you to contact us to learn how far you can push this navigation envelope. But I think that's a very comprehensive view of navigation. One thing we will mention during this training thing is the layout of that navigation. If you're wondering why each of these navigation items showed up with a certain layout, with, for example, when I click on Contact Us form, we have these icons over here and this blue title. Or if I clicked on another one like our history, again, blue title and these icons over here. So you might be looking at your navigation page saying, hey, I need a totally different layout for that. And that's a different training session, but if you're curious, that is controlled by Module Designer, also part of site architecture. And within the Module Designer, we have a navigation section that allows us to control the color of those links, where the icons live, that sort of thing. And just to kind of illustrate that, I'm going to make this a little bit larger. I'm going to make it red. So basically all links for these pages should now be red, so that one change to that template designer will change all of our pages to red. Here's our history in red. Here is our form, contextless form in red. So what's great is that's the style sheet and the module designer controlling all pages of that type, in this case navigation. So we encourage you to, if you're a little confused, maybe re-watch this video and then take the test to get certified on Centralpoint navigation. And we thank you very much for your time.